Okay, and welcome back, everyone, to Strange Planet Podcast, where we talk about America's crumbling economy and dictatorship that we seemingly can't get out of at the moment. But now that I'm on that topic, I wanted to establish a few things in case people are living in Fantasy Island. But there has been nothing, even including Trump's last term, let alone the disaster we're now living through at this moment. Let's see. We're going to go over a quick checklist of all the false promises and lies that we've been given, and just maybe a little wake up call for those that might still believe this bullshit. So, yeah, remember the wall? You didn't get the wall. You were supposed to get a $5,000 Dodge check. You didn't get that. $2,000 stimulus. You didn't get that. The Mr. I'm the peace president that I want a Nobel Peace Prize. What does he do? Start a war. Yep. So that's real peaceful, right? And then let's see. The list goes unbearably on. Gas prices. I was going to start naming things individually, but at this point, thanks to the tariffs and thanks to the war that he had started, basically at this point, the cost of everything is up. You know what I mean? So there is like no relief in sight at all. So I just thought, and this list goes on, and you guys feel free if you want to chime in on anything I may be missing. But the overall point here is you've been obviously lied to. And this rhetoric is going to continue. So if you want to believe this shit on like your own fantasy island, I mean, you're entitled to do so, but you're really only hurting yourself in the long run, because we all live here in reality. And this is what the reality entails at this point. So I really don't even know what else to say as far as this ever-growing list of false promises and lies. But the bottom line is you, me, and everyone else in this country is now paying for it. And you could even add, I just thought of another one, you could even add the whole Epstein files. This whole thing is this war we're dealing with is an entire cover-up to, distract from that. So now you're more focused on this. You know what I mean? And by the way, not one conviction. So I guess pedophilia is okay in America now. I mean, I'm not okay with it, and no one on this panel, I'm sure, is okay with it. And most of you at home, or all of you at home, are probably also not okay with it. But the bottom line is, what's being done?
Yep.
That's my thing. What's being done? This is the worst administration, I think, in my lifetime, to be totally honest with you. No accountability, no honesty, nothing but lies, and tax breaks for the rich. This is where we live. This is what America has now become. And the sad part of the whole thing is this is going to have a giant ripple effect in the next 15 years. I'd say at least 10 to 15 years, is we have to reestablish all of our allies' relations. And I honestly think even when this piece of shit is dead and gone, we're still going to be living with the repercussions of what he had done during this time right now.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think about this chaos? And like, is there any way out? I mean, or is anything going to be done? Will there be accountability? I don't know.
There definitely has to be a regime change before anything can happen. Because not only has he got most other Republicans under his thumb, because some are starting to see the light, which is
the slow clap. Yep.
The slow clap for you guys. It's like, okay,
yeah, yep.
Good job for being good once. But, for the most part, it's just, I mean, has egg prices gone down? Has any prices of any food stuff's gone down?
Nothing.
I love how companies just jump on the bandwagon. Oh, gas prices go up, so we're going to put our stuff up too. Half your stuff isn't even involved with that. But whatever.
Yep.
And then you got, the billionaires backing everybody, and Trump saying whatever the fuck he wants to say, does what he wants to do. I mean, what did he say about gas prices? Oh, hey, when we're making money, it's good. It's like, no, you're making money.
And we're
not making anything. I'm
paying it. Exactly.
That's the ticket right there is you're paying the money on everything, on his new ballroom,
the tariffs.
All the gold leaf he has in the office now, you paid for that. You're paying for this Boeing thing that was given to him by somebody else because he's got to make it right for the people by giving it whatever the fuck the situation is. You're paying for all the shit that he's getting.
Pretty much. Or we're supposedly getting. But Brooke, you were going to say something?
Yeah, no, I was just going to push back on the notion that, gas prices don't affect, things like the companies.
Well, I
Yeah,
understand the thing of
it like
transportation, but like they're gouging the fuck out of everything.
Of course, because
no,
who's going to
well,
stop them?
no, well, I mean, it's really hard to think of something that doesn't involve oil. Um, oil definitely powers, everything,
Pretty
whether
much.
We need a new
whether
infrastructure.
it's electricity, whether it's transporting goods, whether it's transporting um, people to and from work, like everything runs through energy, and most of that energy, unfortunately, comes from oil.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, everything's going to be more expensive because of this war.
Didn't we just
And
get a whole bunch of oil from Venezuela?
Yeah, we
uh,
stole a whole bunch of oil from
Yeah,
Venezuela.
free
He
oil.
stole it. Yeah, because without congressional approval goes into Venezuela, abducts their leader and wife
Yep.
or dictator or whatever however you want to call it, brings them here for whatever reason, and then we steal their oil. So like I thought prices were going to come down with those billions of barrels we stole.
well, it doesn't come down if you start another war with a country that, has vastly more oil and, you know, can fuck up like oil transportation. You know, almost seems like every time the economy like calms down and is, headed for an upward trajectory, Trump just does something completely stupid and messes it up.
Yep.
Um, the what was it, Pam Bondi, who at the hearing was like, "Oh, the Dow. What about the
Who
Dow?"
gives a fuck about the
About the
Dow?
Dow.
Okay,
Yeah,
but the Dow is down.
very
Okay,
down.
it's
Yeah,
down.
the Dow is
What about
down.
the Dow now? Um, like, this whole thing was likely a distraction from the
Of
Epstein
course.
files. It had the effect of that because that was, drumming up again. That was the same thing that happened late last year when the Epstein files were coming to a head. Um, and then I forget what he did that time, but it
Wasn't it
was
like aliens or some shit?
There was a thing like
no,
that he tried
no,
to
no, it
distract with, and
wasn't
that wasn't good
aliens.
enough.
It was something else. Like this is the thing, like so much crazy shit happens in this administration that
Right?
it's hard to keep track of. But there
Yeah, and it's
was
For
only
real.
been like a year. That's the fucked up part. It's only been a year, and so much shit has happened. Fucking
but
laws have been changed and fixed, and
Was. I don't even know we have them anymore, to be honest.
well,
well,
they're laws for the rich, so the poor people can go to
well,
jail.
hold on. We do have, the Constitution still, and apparently Trump
Do we?
Trump just announced that he's going to ignore it by, we're still in a government shutdown, a partial government shutdown. We're not funding the Department of Homeland Security. Congress cannot agree on that. I'll remind you that in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution, Congress has the power of the purse. They have the power to appropriate funds, and absent that appropriation, the president can't spend money. You can't just like, take away. Oh, I guess you can now because Congress is, will probably do nothing about it.
Probably
They've
not.
already given away their war powers, their power to declare war. They've
It's like they don't even
already given
exist.
up on oversight, and now they're just giving up, the one thing that is just like, crystal clear that Congress needs to, come up with a budget and appropriate funds to the government, and all the executive branch is supposed to do is carry out, those appropriations and spend those funds. Trump is saying that, I'm going to disregard Congress. Congress, decided not to fund this department. And he said, I'm going to fund it anyway, and I'm going to pay TSA workers. Now, that's good for the workers and, their families. but it also disregards the Constitution blatantly.
Once again,
And what are we gonna do about it? Absolutely nothing.
of course not.
The Republicans are too afraid to. They'll come up with some excuse. They'll just say, "Oh, well, yeah, the families need to, um, you know, live. The workers and their families need to, bring home a paycheck," and that is true. However, you know, that is not a reason to violate the Constitution. You have to come up with a compromise in which you can get, a majority of politicians to pass funding for this department. Otherwise, the department should not operate. Um,
In addition to what
or,
you're, oh,
it's like crazy that it's come to this, but if Congress speaks on the matter, and it has by withholding funds from this department, then the executive branch should not be allowed to go around Congress and say, well, you know what, we're going to take money from elsewhere and we're going to spend it on this thing that Congress has said we're not spending money on, as of now. We're just not going to spend it because we have policy disagreements about what the department should be doing. And Trump is going around that blatantly.
And it feels like he set that up because didn't he tell the Republicans don't do any deals with Democrats? So he's essentially stalling.
Probably not in them direct words, but it sounds like something you would say almost in those direct words, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically telling them not to do any deals with the Democrats.
Which is, only hurting its own country because now, like, how is that going to
now he wants to try to be like the hero and pay these people. Don't get me wrong. These people should be paid.
Right.
Should be done the right way.
Not arguing that, right.
Yeah.
But let's keep one other thing in addition to what you were saying, Brooke. Isn't part of the reason why Congress is butting heads on that whole thing is because of the SAVE Act, and also because the SAVE Act basically is voter, suppression in layman's terms? Isn't that part of the reason?
That's a completely different issue. But of course, Congress likes to bundle things together.
Right.
And so, he wants to pass the SAVE Act, which essentially will make it harder for people to vote. He criticized
land of the free, he's been brave, right?
He's been criticizing Democrats across the country in different states for allowing mail-in ballots, and then he voted by mail-in ballot.
Right? Like, what fucking sense does that make?
He called it fraud, and then he does this is it's hypocrisy, of course, but people just ignore what he does. They just ignore it. They create excuses for him,
or just ignore
it completely.
Yeah, no,
that's why people are ignoring it, because Congress is ignoring it. You know what I mean? We don't have Congress with balls that are going to be like, listen, this is wrong. You can't do this. No one steps up to them. So that's the reason why the minions
and the Supreme Court won't either.
No, they're a waste of fucking space altogether, all of them. But that's not new. They've been a piece of shit for the past 3 decades at least. Why do you think there hasn't been any legislation that's been passed that benefits the average American? Because the Supreme Court doesn't give a shit. You probably could name a list.
Well, the Supreme Court's job is not to pass legislation.
Well, that's also true, but they're not helping the situation.
Set precedent, right? Isn't it there to set precedent for some laws?
Precedent is more like, the holdings of a case that, will their interpretation of the law should, stand over time. It should be.
Yeah, it should stand over time. Like,
so
a president who gets involved in, terrorism against his own country shouldn't be allowed to be president anymore. Shouldn't be allowed to be put on a ballot.
I don't know about terrorism.
Well, insurrection. I meant.
Yeah, which is what that was.
Although you have a higher threshold for terrorism than the Trump administration does.
Yeah.
When he accused those protesters who were killed by
I,
ICE
Yep.
of
And
being
what came of that?
terrorists.
ICE is killing American citizens.
yep.
You know what I mean? So like, what were they convicted? Were they tried? Did anything happen? No, of course not, because they look the other way, just like the same thing with Trump's actions. That's what I'm saying. If this kind of what we're seeing now, if this happens again, it's going to be times 10, but worse. And then you could just kiss this country goodbye. It's done.
We're already on the
Yeah.
precipice. It's
Yeah.
going to take a little tweak, and we're done.
Yeah. That's the direction this country is headed. There may not be in America if we get another president like Trump.
Well, all right.
There may
I
not.
would say I don't think America is going to get to the point of a third world country.
We're pretty
because-
close.
Hear me out.
All right, go ahead.
The one thing about Americans is, we have a big code of FAFO. Fuck around and find out. So I think it may get the public to a point where we may do something kind of wild.
Like a revolution
I don't
kind
want
of
to say
thing?
anything
Or
online because I don't want to start anything. But
like a revolution you're talking? Or
basically, it's
Yeah.
going to get to that point.
I almost feel like it has to. Yeah, because like this is that's what I feel like the No Kings thing is kind of unofficially representing, which is I'm 100% for, because
Yeah.
this is not what American values
No,
ever were.
we
You know what I
left,
mean?
monarchy to start something more free for everybody.
Right,
But apparently, those who are in power don't want to lose their power,
right.
even when they're 90,000 fucking years old, Mitch McConnell. But you know what I'm saying?
For real
It-
though,
this
became
should
a
be-
retirement home.
Term limits for everybody, even in the fucking
Yeah, across the
Supreme
board.
Court. Because I do not believe that it's like it's Supreme Court. They're getting gifts from people who don't even belong to this country. It's just like, how is this legal?
Yeah,
It's like, so the Supreme Court is bought and paid for. The House and the Senate are now under the thumb of the Republicans who don't give a shit about you
Or
or
under Trump,
any
more
other
or
human
less.
being. And yeah, it's basically Trump all around.
yeah. But that's the sad part.
I still don't understand how these people let this get to that point. I mean, is there no morals in the fucking government anymore?
It looks that way to me, to be honest, because it's all about power, like you said, and it's all about keeping the billionaire class as rich as possible
Yep.
at the expense of everybody else, pretty much at this point. That's kind of where we are at this point, and
Yeah.
I just don't like the way and the direction this country is going. Like, unless we get some real systemic change, I don't think we're going to be seeing any price decreases anytime soon, even after this supposedly useless war that we're doing is over, if it's over. Because what is it, week 5 now? And we have no idea, like, if we're going to end it, what's going on, are we leaving, or we know nothing, you know what I mean? Like,
Trump keeps saying that it's over, we won, and he has no fucking idea what's going
no,
on.
according to him, gas is $1.99 a gallon, which it's definitely not. Not in one state is the
I
gas
don't
$1.99 a gallon.
I do not think gas is going to go below $3 ever again.
Probably not at this rate. Probably not. And we just, like we were saying earlier, we just stole these barrels. So, like, well, not we, because we have nothing to do with that.
Yeah, we have.
But
nothing
like,
to
yeah,
do.
Trump did rather. But like, you know what I mean? We got all that extra oil. Wouldn't you think the price might come down a little? Nope, nope. But like Rook also said, it's also due to the war. You know what I mean? That, we don't want or need, but we are now dealing with. So, but the funny thing is even if the war didn't, like, say he didn't do it, I guarantee you the prices still wouldn't have came down, even though we inherited all that oil.
Yeah,
there's no way
it's
to
fucking
there's no
chill.
way to tell that.
But there's no way of knowing realistically. But we'll know when this war is over, because it may come down a little, but it's not going to come down like you think it is.
All right,
This is
Rook,
America.
I'll give you that. I'll give you the fact that you can't really say that's happening because you don't know for sure. But I will say it's a very high probability that it's happening because people are greedy.
Yeah.
The story.
Yep. Especially in this country.
Sure.
This has become a nation of greed and
Yeah,
fascism all of a sudden too. And fascism. And that's the scary part.
Honestly,
anybody...
I don't think it's about fascism, because I don't think with Trump it's about the control. It's about the grift.
Well, that could be
He
too.
just wants to make
that's
the
actually
money. He don't
fair
give a
point.
shit.
Fair point.
I'm going to take over Venezuela. Why? Because I want their oil. I'm going to have a fight with Iran. Why? Because I want their fucking oil.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. That's a fair point. But the funny thing about about fascism in general is, if you are anybody, even if you're rich at this point, although they probably would have more of an upper hand in things, whoever thinks fascism is a good idea clearly has not paid attention to history at all, ever, because it's never worked and it's never been a positive outcome or series of events that either happened during or after. You know what I mean? It's never been a good idea. And there's been probably dozens of movies that'll even prove that too. But the movies aside and just reality and history leading the case here, I mean, I just don't understand why you would think that's a good idea. Like, or why you would even, because you dip your pen in that ink, and guess what? Once you do, you're not going to be able to undo that. You see what I'm saying? So once you take a dive into fascism, it's very hard to come out. It's kind of like a gang. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You want to get in the gang, but most of the people that are in them want to get out, but you can't get out. You know what I mean? Because you're in too deep now. So
Like I
like,
said, it may we may end up having to do something wild because
yeah, but that's really the direction this country is going. The only good thing is I think in general, slowly, unfortunately, we are starting to make the right moves. Because if I didn't, the only positive the only positive news I can gather in the past couple of weeks was that the Democrats actually flipped like over 30 seats. So that's a step in the right direction. But now here's the reason why I'm going to cut that really short. If they do, and well, it's been done, and hopefully they get more, the real thing we need to see is action after all of this.
yeah,
Yeah, because like if these seats are going to be flipped, which is good, don't get me wrong, it's better than the bullshit we got running right now. You know what I
yeah.
mean? But action needs to be done. There needs to be legislation to prevent chaos like this again. There needs to be something done to make sure and prevent
I
that
don't
these
know.
atrocities don't,
Yeah.
history
And
repeats
The
itself
problem,
regardless.
the
in
But
in a
problem with that is, I think Rook's going to say this too. The problem with that is it has to go through Trump. He has to sign whatever they do into law,
well,
and
that's
he's not.
also true.
He's gonna pocket
well,
veto most of that shit.
Yeah, you're right.
I
That's also true.
what I was gonna say is that okay, yes, that's true. Trump's not gonna fucking sign his own fucking death warrant. What I was gonna say though is that it's really up to the people. We are in a democracy.
Well,
We're
Now
not.
are we? Go on.
Yes, we're
we
we're in
still
a
are. We
democ.
still are. We can still say
There
we're
there
in a
are
democracy, but
elections.
it's slowly sliding. But
Yeah,
continue.
go on.
We are in a democracy, which means that the people have the ultimate, say in what goes down in this country. And like it or not, the people voted for Trump. The majority of the people went out and voted for Trump.
That's a fair point.
Um,
I still think there's some shenanigans behind the last whatever, but
sure, you could say
we'll
that,
take it
but
for
there
face
there
value.
are if
I
you go
agree.
around, not only, even in the state of New York where we live, if you go around the country and there are enough Trump supporters, okay? It shouldn't have even been close if you were, you know, just had
Educated,
moral, no, not even about education, just like
morals.
moral and of sound reasoning. If you had
Talking to you,
people like
Christians.
that voting, then Trump wouldn't have been president. So
Yep.
I think that, our problem is going to be recurring
Hmm.
because people we're getting to a point in our society where people are going more and more irritated, more and more impatient, more and more entitled, more and more angry. And so,
Well, the anger I can understand.
okay, but
Yeah,
well, I
because we have a
mean, they're
government that
they're
doesn't give a flying
directing
fuck
they're
about any of
directing their
us.
anger at, different groups of people
That is
rather
different. Yeah, you're right
rather
there.
than
Where it's coming from.
at people who have, basically seized control of industry in this country and are sort of, milking us dry in terms of our labor. Um, and they're going to do that until, AI and, automated technology takes over. Um,
You're fucked.
and then, and then who knows what, they're, I guess, counting on having control of, the machines, the artificial intelligence that is going to run our lives. And, as long as they have control of that, then, money is not even really that big a deal. Because as long as they can control people and get what they want, then ultimately that's, what they spend their money on to consolidate and protect their power. Money is a means for them to power and control. Otherwise, you know, you can buy whatever you want with, just $1 billion and still have plenty left over.
Hmm.
But that's not enough for Elon Musk. That's not enough
Never enough.
for Mark Zuckerberg. That's not enough for Larry Ellison. That's not enough for these guys. They
It's
want
never
more
enough.
and more and more and more. And it's not about money at that point because, money,
Yeah, money after a certain point is like useless because you just have too much of it.
Yeah, well, you can do
right.
whatever you want, clearly, especially
But
in this
but what
country.
it is it's about the ego and the power and control that
Yeah,
they have over others. Um,
that's a fair point.
and you know, they see like this artificial intelligence as like an end game as far as the economy goes. Whoever controls that, whoever, you know, owns the most shares in that technology, whoever controls the companies that, facilitate that technology, those are going to be the people who, will replace government,
Of
essentially.
course. Yeah,
Um, they've already and obviously criticism of our government and especially the current administration is warranted, but in doing so, we also contribute to the massive distrust of government. And it's like sort of a, self-fulfilling prophecy where, people just, regardless of whether you like Trump or you hate Trump, and regardless of whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, it just contributes to this massive unhappiness with government and massive distrust of government.
Yeah,
And that's the thing that, sort of erodes democracy. People just wish that, okay, like someone needs to come in and fix shit. Um, and that is what facilitates fascism. That's what facilitates, a strong man to come in who promises he's going to fix
yep,
shit
and doesn't do
and
shit.
promises he's going to, take, action. I mean, no, he's done shit. He's done like a lot of Project 2025.
Well, not
Okay.
beneficial to the people, but yeah, like he's done
Okay.
shit. Yeah, but
Okay.
not.
But like he has carried out a lot of his agenda. Yeah, he's made promises that he hasn't kept, but he's done a lot of things that, I mean, he said he had no idea what Project 2025 is,
And then implements the whole thing. Yeah, like
uh,
it's
but it's so, you know, unfortunately, part of the solution is going to have to be to learn to trust our government again. And we can't do that, with this administration in power.
nope.
We
Yeah,
can't
definitely not.
because there are just way too many incompetent and corrupt people um, across the board.
yep,
Um, just people who are unqualified for their positions.
Yep.
absolutely.
And there's just, it's unfortunate too, because there's a complete, they fired so many um, career government employees that a lot of the institutional knowledge that was there
Is gone.
is no longer there.
Yep.
And it's going to be hard to get them to come back because, what if in 4 years we elect another, you know Trump-like person that is going to say, you know
That's the
what,
end of
let's
America.
get rid of them. So, a government job, isn't as reliable as it once was. And again, that erodes the trust in government. Um, you know, democracy is, just, it's something that we have to like actively protect. And, you
Big
can
facts.
blame Trump all you want, but I blame the people that put him there.
Yeah,
I
that's yep.
I blame them for
I
what's
agree.
happening right now.
Yeah, you're right, because otherwise we wouldn't be in this case. We wouldn't be even having this discussion. And all right, everyone, that's all we got for this week on Strange Planet Podcast. No new episodes will be normally every Friday on YouTube. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you next week. Thanks for watching. Peace.